The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Stage Door Show. This is Dave Hondel. Tonight, our guest is a multi-award-winning actress, producer, and writer who you've seen in popular TV shows like Yellowstone, How to Get Away with Murder, 24, Miami Medical, that's just to name a few. She's also been in many motion pictures over the years. She's now on the film festival circuit with her feature film entitled A Summer Night, in which she's won several awards for that as well. So please welcome to the show, Miss Chuti Tiu. Thank you for joining me, Chuti.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
Absolutely. You know, we talked about A Summer Night, which is something that you're on the film festival circuit, which has been very, successful so far. But talk about that, because I think this film hits home for a lot of people. I mean, most of us in the world, going through the pandemic and so forth. And, I know that there's a lot of pieces of this film that kind of speaks to what we all kind of went through. Anyway, so talk about that and talk about the success of that film, because I think it's, a lot of that has to kind of factor into the success of it.
Yes. And I am just so grateful to have had the opportunity to tell this story. My husband, Oscar Torre, he is the one who conceived of the idea. He wrote and directed it. And I'm going to be honest, when he first told it to me, I thought it was really, really, really interesting and a great take on how to look at the universal experience of the pandemic. It was slightly experimental in the sense that, I shouldn't say slightly, it was experimental. I don't know what degree you want to give it. But he was inspired by, and I'm not sure how to say their name. Is it Duplass, the Duplass brothers, Duplas? I'm never sure how to say that last name. They a while back, they started, or they were one of the pioneers of the scriptment formula or approach to filmmaking. And what that is it's like in between a full script and a treatment, which is much more of an outline type thing. And so what he did was he had things very fleshed out in terms of character and backstory and what he wanted to have happen, and then specific pieces of dialogue that he wanted for everybody. And then at certain points, there was also an improvisational aspect to it. And that's where I was like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And I have to, because that, you know what, it wasn't me as an artist, to be brutally honest. It was me as a wife going, do I like my husband's idea? And then, so I had to step back and be like, okay, let me just look at him as an artist. I'm like, no, you know what? I think this could really fly, but I got a little bit nervous. And I'm really grateful that he was just saying, no, you'll be great. You could, just do your heart work, your creation work. And that's how I approach my acting creativity, which I can talk about later. And what ended up happening, our goal was, and as storytellers, we love to move and inspire and entertain people, and perhaps enlighten them and help give people a voice, people who may not have been heard or represented on screen. And if we like the film at the end of the day, perfect. He always, Oscar will always say, yeah, well, if other people don't like it, screw them. We like it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which I feel is a very healthy approach to creativity. You don't want to be pandering to people like, well, what do you like? Well, what do you like? Let me try to please everybody. Oh my gosh. Then you end up honestly with a pile of crap. So the themes of this film, it was shot during the pandemic, and it really was a slice of life. In fact, like a cross section of society, where you see people of every different walks of life, background, taste, if you will, and what they were going through during the pandemic. And through that, you see themes of loneliness and loss and isolation, and how we really need connection. And that was true then, but it's true now in this day and age of my gosh, fast-paced technology, social media, people oftentimes, like you and me, for example, I hope we meet in person at some point, but
Absolutely.
it's very possible we may not, because technology allows for this. We can
Right.
see one another, you know what I mean? Not and talk, but not necessarily be in person. But that in-person contact, or at least being able to truly relate with one another, how important that is. And then on top of that, issues of addiction, abusive relationships, aging, parental, that whole generational care where children end up taking care of their parents. So there's a lot in there. It's actually really, in my opinion, masterfully crafted. And I'm not saying that just because Oscar's my husband. It's really, really a wonderful, like dipping one's toe in the pool of humanity.
Yeah. And talk about working with your husband, Oscar, because, I think I've interviewed a lot of, husband and wife teams that are producers and actors and writers and also, mother-daughters, and talk about working with somebody so close to you like that. And, and obviously you're both artists, so you have creative differences, I would imagine, at some points in your work life. But talk about how you navigate that. You have to go home afterwards. So how do you work through that? Do you just separate it at the door and then just hope for the best, or how does that work?
That's a great question, Dave. That would take a lot of discipline, I think, to just leave it at the door. That'd be amazing. But I have to tell you, and this happens to both me and Oscar, you can be sleeping or about to go to bed and be like, oh, wait a minute, I just thought of something, yada, 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 yada.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Your brain never shuts off, right? Yeah.
It doesn't. And your subconscious is constantly working on things. So what we have had to do is establish boundaries, really.
Right.
And there are times where and it's not just working together on this film, and we've worked together many times before, but just in everyday life where it's like, okay, I need some space. I'm decompressing. Give me 30 minutes. I literally do not want to talk,
Right.
And that's something that I actually have to do a lot, because I'm somebody, I feel that I tend to be rather empathetic. And so I take on a lot of people's energies, ideas, thoughts. And there are times where I just want to think.
It's exhausting, right? Yeah.
It is. I want to think by myself. Give me quiet. Let me meditate. Let me just listen to the air and the wind, so I can just calm my spirit.
That kind of center yourself a little bit. Yeah. Completely understand that.
Absolutely.
Well, it kind of brings me to my next question about, what's your approach to acting? You've been doing it for so many years, because, obviously with the TV and films, and I'm guessing there's stage in there as well. So there's different aspects, obviously, to acting and different methods and so forth. What's your approach to acting?
Well, first and foremost, I have to say, I don't think that there's only one approach that is right for everybody. It's kind of like, well, okay, I live in Los Angeles, and let's say, and I'm close to the airport, and let's say I want to get to Burbank. I could take side roads or freeways, and I could take it several routes. I could do the 405, the 10, what have you. There's so many different routes. And so you can't just say, oh, this one is right. You can't say, however, I prefer the 405, or I prefer Stanislavski, I prefer Stella Adler, Sanford Meisner, all of whatever floats your boat. So I really believe that they all have validity, and it helps. And I'm kind of getting into the advice thing. If anybody who's listening, want to know, how can I start being an actor and what have you? I definitely suggest trying all sorts of avenues and see what feels right to you, because each of us is different. Now, for me, my approach, I can very easily go into being too heady and analytical, almost intellectualizing everything. And to me, that is not a good thing, because in life, we're not automatrons and robots that talk like always logically and coming from the head. We really come from our gut and our heart. That's how we operate on an everyday basis. And so I am working right now with the Working Artist Studio with Doug Tompos, which I really love. He's an incredible acting mentor. And what it is really relying on imagination and not thinking of the character as something outside of you, but it is just putting myself in, using my imagination in this situation under the influence of whatever circumstances, people, things that have happened, and start from there and not go from my head like, ooh, what would I think, or what would I say, or what would I feel? Because I think a lot of actors, when you do that, you can fall into, I think, the mistake of being like, well, I wouldn't say that. Well, guess what? The writer said that you say that. There is a reason why the writer wrote that. So release your own personality, your own background, your own judgments, what have you, and just really sit with that. And from there, oh my gosh, you can make the most amazing discoveries. And what I think is that acting in its purest form is a very selfless art, because I will use myself as, my humanity as human being, but I'm not going to be like, okay, how does Chuti Tiu, the half Chinese, half Filipina, classical piano trained, former poli-sci and economics major at Northwestern University, what would she do in this situation? Wrong. Absolutely wrong. How would I, just as a human being, be dropped into this wonderful path? Let me see what the writer tells me. Let me see what where my imagination takes me. So it's actually rather spiritual, not to get too woo-woo, but it is very much where you don't judge the character. You don't think too much with your head. You really, really use your imagination and your heart.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I said it's just, I talk about that on my show all the time. When I was directing music videos, I saw my music video on TV, national TV, for the first time. I cried. It's like, people don't understand. It's a spiritual experience to see your craft and your art, all the hard work that culminates into what you're seeing on the screen. It's something you cannot even describe to somebody unless you've had it happen to yourself, right?
It's so true. That communion of energy and spirit is unmistakable. And what I say to people, when someone says, oh, I'd really love to be an actor, I say to them, well, if you can do anything else, do it, because you have to love it. You can't just go, oh, let me see, it looks really good. To endure the hardships, as I don't know if you've ever read the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but she calls it the shit sandwich.
Yeah. That's about right.
Isn't that great? So it's like, and it's, it's not just artists, it's not just actors who have shit sandwiches. I mean, entrepreneurs do, doctors, lawyers do, moms do.
A lot of failure. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But the thing is, which shit sandwich do you like the taste of the most?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And, and that's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it is. And, as I saw a documentary recently on Michael J. Fox, and, and he was, before he got Back to the Future, he was ready to call it quits. I mean, he was ready to go back home. He had no money. He couldn't even find food basically to feed himself. And then he got that call, and just, so I think that's really a lot of people's story, not just his, but a lot of people, I think, are ready to quit or ready to take that, that road back home, and they don't realize that they were so close to their dream. And, and it's not just the dream. There's several dreams, right? I mean, it's this dream this time, but then when you're done with this project, there might not be another one for a while, and you got to be able to sustain yourself. You got to live. You got to take care of yourself first, and then and then do your craft, but you got to be able to eat as well.
That's so very, very true. And when you said you have to take care of yourself first, that always kicks into gear the image when you get on an airplane, that you have to put the oxygen masks on you first, and then you can help whomever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's vital for any person, but especially as an artist, because there might be so many different influences coming every which way, either from side hustles or family not supporting you, or what have you.
Right.
You really need to make sure whatever it takes to take care of your spirit, your creativity, your a lot of self-care. And it's not just physical, it's
Right.
emotional, spiritual, whatever works for you. Very important.
Yeah. And talk about being a writer and a producer, because I think, and I've always talked about this as well, but I'm of the opinion that if you're a producer and a writer, it actually makes you a better actor, knowing what's behind, the scenes going on. And so it's almost like you're in your head, you're thinking, okay, I know that there was somebody who wrote the words, and I know there's somebody that put this whole thing together, and I know that I'm supposed to stand here and say this, and so it's almost like if you already have that mentality in your head, it's almost like you go onto the stage and you understand, all the aspects of why you're there and what you're doing. So, I mean, do you find that to be true?
I very much so, Dave. I mean, to a T. The reason why, or one of the reasons why I think actors can get, a bad rap is because they can feel like, well, I'm the actor, I'm the star, I'm the lead, everything should revolve around me. But storytelling, be it film, television, stage, what have you, it's a very collaborative process.
Right.
I mean, it's teamwork. You can't do it alone. And so respecting every single role and how we're all woven together in this beautiful tapestry, you really need to give homage to that and respect everyone for what they've done. And so as a producer, in certain projects, I mentioned before when an actor will say, well, yeah, I wouldn't say that. And I'm thinking, oh, no. You just haven't dug deep enough to understand why that word or phrase is there. Don't put yourself there. You really have to be selfless. So that's as an actor. Now, as a writer, I think it's also very important. At least for me, I am not a writer, or at least so thus far, I haven't been a writer for hire, meaning I'm not taking someone else's vision and bringing it to fruition. It's my story, my idea, what I want to give birth to. And so there's definite ownership and freedom in that, and a lot of responsibility. But even with that, there are times where I still remember, in our first feature film, Pretty Rosebud, there was some dialogue that for whatever reason, one of the actors, it just didn't flow well. And it was up to me to just release it and be like, okay, does it have to be said the exact way I wanted to? I did. I wanted it like this, but it didn't work. So let me release that. Like, you don't need to be married to something if it doesn't work. You want it to be a collaborative process.
So it's almost like fighting your battles, inside of your head, right? It's like, well, okay,
Yes.
can I live with this? Because if they're passionate about how they did this, and another thing about art, and this is something also I say a lot, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but obviously art's in the eyes of the beholder. And sometimes when we have an idea, and sometimes that was what I had the hardest time as a director for music videos, in my head, releasing that control as far as what I wanted to see and screen. And, I had to really give that up, because it wasn't just about me, and it was a collaborative thing. Like you said, maybe they hate it and I was the only one who loved it, but, sometimes I have to turn it around,
Absolutely. And it is funny because I don't think, I think just as humans, we can't help but want to control. Like, I wanted to see the tear come out at this line or at this word or something like that. And it really is up to the creators of the story, the director, writer, producer, to really release that attachment to this is how it must go.
Right.
Because that human element, it's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you see something totally different and even better that you couldn't have imagined.
Right.
I think that's part of the magic of our art. I also see that in casting. I love it when it goes my way. Like that's where they're like,
Yeah.
well, we had a lot. This is ages ago. There was a project and they were looking for someone older and more matronly, and here I come, and they were like, yeah, we were kind of thinking of a elderly white grandmother type person, but what you brought, we love. Let's fly with it. That's so much
There you
fun.
go.
Same thing has happened with my husband. He did a series, Kane, years ago with Jimmy Smith, and they were thinking of a tall, like maybe Afro-Cuban, wiry actor. That's what they were looking at. And then my husband is shorter. He's of much fairer complexion. It was a totally
Right.
different visual manifestation of than what they were expecting, but they loved him and cast him. So
Yeah.
it's neat how that works if we allow for it to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And, I guess, what do you tell that, the little girl who wants to become an actress like you and sees you on TV and I want to be just like her and, doesn't know really where to start, like what steps to go through. Maybe she's in grade school and hasn't, had a chance to really experience life yet. But what do you tell a little girl like that who wants to be an actress?
Well, there are the logistical steps of, take classes, get your headshots, all of that, and that's stuff that everyone, and get an agent, have get experience, that there's those are check boxes that you can just check off. And but I think what's really, really important is, I love what you said. She says, I want to be just like you. And I think it's important for every single artist / actor, brings tears to my eyes, to remember that we are unique. And while we're all the same in the sense that we're human beings and we share a human experience, and that's what's so wonderful about storytelling, we can represent other people. At the same time, who this little girl is, who I am, we have different God-given talents, looks, personalities, proclivities, weaknesses, strengths that make us uniquely us, and no one can replicate that. So I would encourage her to really be so, I don't want to say precious, but to be so proud of, and to proud of herself, who she is, and to celebrate that, what she can bring to the table. And
Yeah.
that I really think it's that part of it, what some people call, let's say, working on the creative spirit or your mentality work, as it were. Because I think oftentimes people are like, okay, I got my headshots, I got my classes, I got my agent. Okay, when are things going to happen? And that's like saying, okay, I dressed up, I'm ready to go. Okay, where's the man I'm going to marry? Come on, bring him up. Like, no, that it doesn't work. You work on yourself, see at what level are you going to vibrate at? What energetic level, because that's what you will attract. Now, if you're this person who's so closed off, that's something that I think actors, especially who are so earnest and want so badly to succeed, they come from such a forcing, like, that succeed, by the way, is defined as booking a particular role, booking a particular project. It's important to embrace the entire journey and realize what is true success. Because if what you say is true success is something that you cannot control, oh my gosh, you're done for. Because then you'll never be successful, because you cannot control other people. Whereas if what you say is, okay, I want to know that I did my best in this play, let's say, in this project, in this story, I really feel like I took the other person in. I wasn't thinking Chuti thoughts, I was thinking the character thoughts. And I was really in the story. It wasn't about me. It was about what the writer wanted to portray, what my character's journey was. And that fills me with joy, that artistic sense of accomplishment. That's success. So I would try to, that's a lot of words for a little girl.
No, but I think it's
But
true because the journey is successful. I mean, even if you don't book something, but you were out there doing the audition and, with hundreds of people, to me, that's just to get in front of casting agents or in front of casting directors or whatever, to be able to do that and not even get the role, but look what you just did. I mean, a lot of people can't do that, So I think success is what you make of it.
Amen. That is exactly it.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you is you've been on so many sets, either TV, film, and one of the things I like to bring up a lot, and I haven't brought it up for a while, but I want to ask you this question because, how you treat people on set, and being easy to work with and, even as a star of something, how do you go about, even if you're having a bad day? I mean, talk about going on set and being a good person and being somebody that people, want to work with again. And, when you're working with gaffers and best boy grips and things like that. And, these people aren't making as much money, obviously, and they're there, working their tails off. And then they see the star walk in, talk about, how to treat people on set and what the importance is of that.
Oh my gosh. It is so important. And, some people will say, this is going to be, I don't know if the word is materialistic. That might not be the right word, but some people might say, well, you never know because the person that, the gaffer that you're not treating well today could be the person in charge of directing / hiring you 10 years from now. You just don't want to piss off anybody. There's that mentality. And that is very, very true. You never know in this business who's going where. Everyone, we're all like salmon swimming upstream, trying different things,
Right.
So you just don't know. But on just a basic human level, treating people with respect and dignity and knowing that each and every person is doing their damn best in their role. So on set, things happen all the time that can be convenient, uncomfortable, unpleasant. Of course, there are many things that are amazing, but I'm just saying the things that can come up that might upset a person on set. And we need to realize that it's not personal. And if you put yourself, as an actor, we do this all the time, put ourselves in different shoes. Okay, this poor PA, oh my gosh, she has 5 people yelling at her and she's juggling a million things. So she forgot your coffee. Big deal. It wasn't personal.
Right.
You know what I mean? So letting go of that and just realizing it's a very complicated machine. I think that people who aren't in the industry don't realize the crazy machinations. And I'm sure you remember this on shoots and everything like that, where it's like trying to put together a corporation with so many moving parts in a small amount of time, and you don't have any time. The deadlines are crazy. Everything should be done yesterday, and tensions are very, very high. And on top of that, not everyone has worked together for a long time. They could be complete strangers. So having that trust, you really want to establish trust with everybody you work with. Be on time, be kind, think of others as well, and not to the point where you don't take care of yourself, because there's that danger as well. A lot of actors can be people pleasers, and then suddenly they're not taking the personal space that they need, but they're helping everybody out and trying to be everybody's friend. You don't want to do that either. There is a happy medium where you take care of yourself and at the same time you respect others.
Yeah, that's well said. Also, what was your favorite, I guess, moment in your career so far? Do you have one of those moments that was just, something you look back on and smile?
Oh my gosh. There are a lot of them. And so it's like, okay, swimming through which ones, trying to think of more recent ones. So I'm going to give you 2, actually. One was when I was on set for Yellowstone. And like I said, I think it's so important to treat everyone with respect. And when you see people who aren't on their high horse, they're not, gosh, I thought of a phrase that wouldn't be good to say. It's a little bit too vulgar. So let me edit that out in my brain. But just people who are they're about the work and making sure we tell a good story. And so the actress who plays Beth on Yellowstone, Kelly Riley, she plays Beth Dutton.
Yep.
I was playing opposite her, and she was wonderful because she didn't come from a place of, I don't know you, I've never met you, who do you, what have you. And we actually got to improvise a little bit. So the script changed a little bit, but because of her respect of me just as another fellow actor telling this awesome story, we were able to add a few more layers into that conversation that we were having, into that scene. And it became something more than it had been before. And I was just so tickled because you never know, when you're
Yep.
guest starring on a show, you have no idea who, well, you know who the players are, but you don't know what they're going to be like.
Right.
What are their personalities? What are their quirks and likes and dislikes? And when in any workplace, you want to know that because you want a harmonious environment. You want to do a good job in this case, as an actor in the scene. But like in any workplace, you want to know what are the dynamics, what are the politics. And it's so wonderful when you find people who just play because they love to play.
Right.
My heart was literally dancing afterwards.
Well, and
And
she
she
showed
was
you
great.
respect too, which is amazing. As a fellow actress and professional, and so that's amazing. I love that story actually. And so people out there listening, just know, if you go on, sometimes improv is a good thing to take too. If you haven't, in your acting career, because you never know when something like that's gonna happen, and you got to be able to kind of think on your feet.
Oh, and that's so true. And it's happened a number of times on the movie Rampart when I was playing opposite Woody Harrelson. And I remember the director at a certain point just said, just riff, because I was playing his lawyer. And, there were other people present in the scene. But, I think some people aren't used to that. So it's when you do the character work and the background work, you're not just thinking, oh, these are my lines and these are the only lines I'm going to say. That actually that never happens in life. Like
Right. That's
with
true.
you right now, I'm not saying I will only say these things or these sentences today.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We're constantly thinking. But
Right.
the other story I wanted to tell you, and this was a long time ago, more towards the beginning of my career, but I was in New York at the time, and I had and this is not an on-set experience, but just meeting, one of your idols kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I went to see a play, Amy's View. I saw Judi Dench in it,
wow.
and she incredible. And so I was waiting backstage, and I was hoping she would come out, and she was taking a while, and actually the actor Tate Donovan happened to be there, and he's like, are you waiting for someone? And I said, I would actually love to see meet Dame Judi Dench. And he said, I'll bring you up. Which
Wow.
again, like, really? Oh my gosh, thank you. So I go to her dressing room. There's like roses everywhere, so many flowers. And I start gushing like a crazy Uber fan. I couldn't help it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dave Judi Dench, I'm your biggest fan. I've seen everything you've done. And I'm just gushing, sounding like an idiot. And finally I say, I just want you to know, I aspire to be like you. And then she paused and she looked me up and down and said, oh no, dearie, I aspire to be like you.
Oh, wow. That's going to be in your memoir.
Totally is. I was like, oh my gosh. so self-effacing and humorous and so amazingly talented and moving. It was
That's
definitely
unforgettable.
something totally unforgettable.
Well, before we go, I want to ask you, what's your legacy? What do you want that to be?
You're gonna have to forgive me because that question itself brings me to tears. That although I'm imperfect, and mind you, that includes a bad temper, which not everyone has seen, but when people have seen it, they're like, whoa, God, I didn't know she had that in her. But although I'm imperfect, I always gave it my best, and that I was able to move people and inspire them to see what other worlds are like, and also giving voice to those that who don't get large platforms. That I was able to do that for these people and these stories. That's what I would like to be known for.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that. Thank you for that. Summer Night, the new feature film, is out in festival circuit right now, and so what can we expect from that film right now? I know you've hit several film festivals in different markets, but where is it going now?
So we are still doing the film festival circuit, and we're actually still waiting to hear here on future festivals. And then after that, we will be looking at distribution, streaming services, and whatnot. So please stay tuned. And then if anyone wants to follow A Summer Night, it's on Instagram. It's a Summer Night movie, and then I'm just Chuti Tiu, Chutie. Those are our Instagram handles.
Well, Chuti, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show tonight, and make sure you keep us apprised of your film, and we can obviously have you on again down the road and talk about what's next for it. So again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, Dave, this has been such a pleasure, and I feel like kismet, that we are like-minded spirits. So thank you so very much.